stopped literally a couple of times. And I told Jarrell, I was like, something told me to keep going. But like, I told him, I said, I'm not trying to shade anybody else because everybody else is doing great work. But I'm like, I feel like I'm the only one in this space that's looking at this from a global standpoint about like, if someone like all of us is in this space and that's not a classroom teacher and that's trying to implement like 8 campuses, how do you do that? You know? And I told Jarrell flat out, like, well, I'm not writing curriculum. I can do that in my sleep. That's not a problem. But if someone who's in our seats, all 4 of us are in here right now, that's in our seats, we're not going to stop and write curriculum. We're looking at, okay, I'm going to borrow your curriculum, pieces together and push it out because we don't have that kind of time. We wear several different hats in our role, so we don't have time to write something for a whole entire year. A classroom teacher has time to do that. An actual specific program director has time to do that. But us in our specific roles, we don't have time to do that. Yeah. So that's the angle that I was coming from. And then I told Drill, like, you need a reality check too, because you have to know what your position is in the district too. Like, you can't do everything. So if you say, I want to do esports, it's great. All right, well, what else are you doing? Because in your district, you're not going to do just esports. I need you to go and milk that cow. I need you to go do this. I need you to do this. I need you to do this. I need you to do this.
Who's milking a cow in education?
I was just going to say, who's milking cows?
Well, I'm just
all right, we're gonna count down before this gets too silly. Welcome in, everybody. It is Thursday night. It's a little different take tonight. Angelique was not able to be here tonight. She was set up to host, but I will be stepping in. And I feel so weird that Carrie's not here. It's just, I don't know. I'm so used to, we've been doing this for about a year now, and I feel like Carrie's been here for every time. So, Carrie, miss you. Where did that horn come
from? That's my wife pulling up, telling the kids to come get the groceries.
That's right. Come get these groceries.
So yes, welcome in. It is not time for the Esports EDU chat. I am one of your co-hosts tonight. I am James Lincoln, Director of Digital and Virtual Learning for the Racine Unified School District. And to my right, we have
Christopher Turner, head esports coach for Southern University. Go Play podcast and a host of other titles that I'm never going to get into.
And right over here we have...
Hey everybody, I'm Bradford Harris. I am the coordinator of digital innovation in Houston, Texas for Aldine ISD, and I am the director of learning for Texas Classic Esports Federation, and I am the NASEF Scholastic Fellow for 2021.
Graduated.
How about that? Yeah, how about that?
Man.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get into about what you did for your project, because I think it's important to talk about. And right down below me, we have the person who's keeping us all in line tonight.
Somebody has to do it.
Right.
Hey everyone, I'm AJ. I am the esports coach at Park University. I am also the chair-elect for the board of directors for NACE and the vice chair of the Kansas City Esports Coalition.
Has Southern ever played Park in anything?
No, we have not.
Look at this. Got a couple of collegiate coaches here looking to have a throwdown. But Chris, you've got something pretty important to plug, that a project you've been working on that I think you just made a pretty big a launch announcement today. You want to play that up for people?
Yeah, it was a soft launch. So I created a pro-am league within high school esports league. So I'm going to be heading that up as general manager. And I got a commitment from high school esports league that 2K and Madden is going to be free to participate in for the next 2 years. And so I'll be helping redevelop the format that Madden is played as well. And looking forward to just changing the scope of scholastic esports, man, and making it accessible and fun for everybody.
And I can't wait to see.
Wow.
Like I said, the launch video was good. I know you're the graphic design guy. You've got those. How long did that take you to make? I mean, come on.
Oh, probably 30 minutes.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
The rest of us, we've been there like 3 days. Like, first we'd have to learn how to use After Effects, and then we'd have to learn how to use.
Oh, I'm gonna need to see the launch video. I hadn't even seen that. So wait, we can start doing that in the fall, Chris?
You can do it for the summer, and it's a development league. So I hadn't released the names yet, but you have Q&A sessions with 2K professionals, and you have like a health and wellness session. You have like a 2K clinic with a professional, like how to dribble the ball, how to space it, how to communicate.
You said that last week, something like that.
Yeah.
Last week,
Yeah. So
this is real.
It's a full program, and so I'm excited about it because now you create a real pipeline within that 2K community, which a lot of minorities play that game. So it's something that James and I talked about when we first met, like how to implement 2K in another way other than 1v1. And so it's just perfect timing because the high school esports league has a queuing platform, so I really don't have the tournament organized. I can just look at it from a structural standpoint and plug and go.
And I think some of the things I talked about with 2K again is not just the 1v1, but you know how people just pick teams and they're like, oh, I'm going to be the Bucks or I'm going to be Lakers or whatever. And the way I was looking at it was a 3 versus 3, having it be using the blacktop version, which is more playing to 21. But then making kids have to. My ultimate dream is to have a draft like a League of Legends type draft where you can ban certain players and then make, that way everybody kind of has to know every player. But again, trying to make you pick players like 85 or higher, 75 to 84, and then anything below a 75 for your third player that you pick. So that way you have to know all the NBA players. You can't just focus on the superstars. You have to know everybody top to bottom. But again, can't make that just happen overnight. But I love that, Chris, that you're taking this. And again, as you're saying so correctly, we do ignore a lot of the games that are minority driven, especially when we're talking about competition. Fighting, especially the fighting game community, but like you said, Madden and 2K especially.
No, for sure. I think just putting an impact. One of the first things, the first conversations I'll be transparent with, just like I had with them was like, what do we do to reach those communities? Because I mean, it kind of goes back to what we kind of spoke on last week. Within the minority community, your fighting games, your sports games, are underrepresented. Mm-hmm. And so, like, how do we reach those communities? How do we reach those kids that pretty much play those titles every day? And so, I think this is going to be cool, especially going into the fall. You're going to start seeing schools saying, hey, what 5 kids or 7 kids I can get for rotation to play these games. It's going to be like equivalent to having a basketball team if you really look at it.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be those 5 kids. I'm going to tell you, because I know all of us sitting here have been approached during the pandemic when athletics was shut down and forced, hey, what can we do? What can we do? I didn't have time to set anything up. I didn't even know where to begin, to be honest with you. When this goes out, I'm going to tell you, they're not going to be looking for what 5 kids. You're going to have already a set of people that are already going to come in. I'm male and female.
Yeah.
What can we do to get started? And I'm just going to put money on this too. banking the next couple years, or maybe in a year or two, like there'll be like some type of female game that'll come out where women will be able to play too as well. This is going to be awesome. This is really going to be awesome.
Yeah. No, I think it will be. You know, if anybody that's a part of that community knows, you know, we get 2K and we grind our player, meaning, you know, it's what they call the road to 99. And so you're able to do cool stuff like scan your face in and color your hair green, purple, and express that
or
character.
Give yourself hair.
Or give yourself hair. And so I can't wait to see like the kids' characters along with the gameplay, man. It's gonna be hilarious.
I'd look like Will Ferrell in that what's that basketball movie that he did? That's what I would look like. Like the Flint Tropics or whatever the name of the team was.
Yeah,
that'd be me.
Yeah.
Semi-pro. Thank you, Mike Dolly. Thank you for bringing that through. But I'll tell you this, though, and here's something that's really exciting. And I kind of want to segue this into the E3 conversation because E3 happened last week. And quite frankly, I looked at all the E3 stuff and I was like, yeah, there's some cool game titles there. But there was one thing, and it's going to help, I think, everybody. I think it's going to help everybody in Scholastic Esports, whether you're playing on a PC or whether you're playing on consoles. And I know we've talked about cloud computing going back. You know, we talked about Stadia and we talked about, you know, those experiences. And I tried out Amazon's. I didn't try out Google's, but Amazon sent me a controller and I tried it out. And it was like, okay, these are all game titles I already have. But the performance was pretty good. But Microsoft made a major announcement that really went under the radar. Can anybody guess what it is? Anybody want to take a wild guess?
You talking about like all the Game Pass exclusives?
Not Game Pass. Though I will say the Game Pass, dude, if you're not, if you are not using, if you do not subscribe to Game Pass, you need to subscribe to Game Pass because that just pays for itself like day one. But there's something even bigger than that, and like I said, I think it really went under the radar, and here it is. Ready, everybody? Microsoft made the conscious decision that you will be able to play Xbox Series X games, so next-gen console games, on the Xbox Ones, the current Xbox Ones, using their cloud computing tech. Now, think about that. They have a partnership now with EA. EA is part of their Game Pass titles. You can get those EA, that new Madden that comes out. You don't have to have the Xbox Series X that people can't get necessarily. Now, I don't know if this is going to be all games. But again, they're going to allow it to be at least cloud-based. Now, as we know, competitive gamers are probably going to think like cloud-based is like whatever. But the fact that Microsoft is saying you can take that Xbox One, that now you can go to a GameStop and probably get used for, you know, around $200, let's say, maybe less, $150 even. You can get that used Xbox One, plug it in, and still play that Xbox Series X style new gen console game. That way you can have cross-platform play between you and others. That to me starts to bring the cost way down for people potentially. I'm saying I'm not know if the tech is good yet. I don't know how the cloud tech is because again, there's that lag and there's all those other things. But this starts to open up conversations now for what Chris was talking about of can we really expand this out? Can we make this? Where do we find these things? Even, you know, $150. I mean, you could almost give a kid an Xbox at school for $150. I mean, that. How much do we charge for textbooks? A textbook's $100. And if our esports teams are saying, let's just give them an Xbox to take home. I mean, that's, you know, like a textbook, right?
Especially with this CARES Act money.
Well, the ESSER money and the CARES Act, yes, that's all completely different. And now, like I said, now that doesn't necessarily help AJ with collegiate, and that doesn't help you with. But I did a podcast interview this last week with Dan Clark from Maryville because Dan has been taking some very different views about where esports is. And again, collegiate, can't say this enough, collegiate and K-12 are so very different in what we're trying to do. But he's concerned about the watering down of again, we all these new titles come out, right? How do you take kids who are so excited about a new title that comes out and says, oh, we want to do a tournament or we want to do this. And how do you say, but right now we got to focus on Overwatch, or we got to focus on 2K, or we got to focus on League of Legends? How do you keep that all together?
I think organically has already been sectioned to, structure things like that, because you got to think, you got to, and so I'll put my pillars out here. I don't mind, because you can copy the pillars, but a lot of people won't put in the work. And so like my pillars in my program is community, careers, competition, health, and wellness. And so the community aspect, that's where you filter in the new kids that want to play the new titles and have tournaments and have an overall community feel. And so I think on the competitive side, you're gonna just have titles that are strictly competitive, and that's what that's where they're gonna live. So you're feeding both fires. Because to be honest with you, you have more gamers than competitive gamers. And that's the audience that we're feeding, and so you got to keep your audience happy. You got to keep your community happy, and so you're gonna have to implement new titles and new tournaments and new LAN events for the community aspect of it. But competition is totally separate, and I'm familiar with how he feels about his program. He's strictly competitive. Mm-hmm. Trust me.
And AJ, I think you probably saw that conversation too, right, AJ?
I might have seen a bit of it. Yeah, I think I did. But yeah, for myself and for our program, specifically, there is not on campus, there is not like a casual video game club. The closest thing that we have is like a tabletop gaming club that's on our campus. So before the pandemic hit and we were able to bring students into our facility, we would have open house nights where any student could drop by the parkade, and we would all just sit around and, hey, who wants to play what? We would throw together some, quick tournaments as well. If we really knew people wanted to play a certain game, we'd throw together a quick tournament bracket. So, within this past year, because of COVID, a lot of the intramural side, that was something that I was working on. A lot of that just basically died. In the fall semester, I hosted some virtual open houses where, hey, just like pop in the Discord into the voice channel of the game that you want to play, and whoever jumps in will play with you. In the fall semester, those were not particularly, we didn't get a lot of outside people involved. Sure, the esports athletes participated, but any of like the general student body, we couldn't get a lot of people to participate. So in the spring, I was laser focused on competition in our varsity team. So I would hope that moving forward, now that we're going to get back to some form of normalcy in the fall semester, that, I'll be able to take a slice of my time and kind of dedicate it to the casual gamers that we do have on campus.
I think what I realized after that conversation was that, boy, we have not done, and maybe it's the job of the K-12 space to really get in and do some better work when it comes to the non-competitive, the casual game. I don't even want to call them casual, because they're still gamers. Casual almost makes it sound like they don't care, it's just still competitive kids. Yeah. But
avid gamers.
What's that?
Avid gamers.
Avid gamers. That's that's such a better term than saying casual. I think that we need to, maybe K-12, we need to do a much better job of introducing a lot of these. Again, as you talked about your pillars, I got my pillars. Building in those pillars, and if there is going to be those experiences of kids or groups of kids who want to be more serious. In fact, I think even, and Bradford, you might have heard this too, when I was on the NASEF Scholastic Fellow, what are we calling that? It's not like a closing, sir. It's like a culmination of your work, right? Travis Witt, who's one of our coaches here in Racine, was talking about how what they found was kids, while there are some who do want to do competitive, more want to just have the social. They just want to have the social side of it. They want it to be safe. They want it to be fun. They want to be able to play, certain things. And yeah, there are some who still want to do it, but for most, they just want to belong to something fun and awesome.
Yeah. I found that in my program. Like if I'm looking at just like hard data and being real with myself, I have more avid gamers than I have competitive gamers, without a question.
Man, we are so. That's going out. That's going to go out. I'm taking a note on that just so I don't forget that term. Avid and competitive. Yeah. We're not calling it casual anymore.
Yeah.
You get to own that one, my friend. My goodness.
And so, and then too, well, to backtrack, you mentioned E3. Like, I see the potential in the Mario Golf title, especially the battle mode, where you have to run. If you hit the ball, you got to run and knock your players out the way and fight to get to the ball. Like, I can see people actually trying to make that an esport.
Have you seen? Now, this is going to sound really crazy. Have any of you seen the Savannah Bananas or heard of the Savannah Bananas?
Mm-hmm.
They are a summer league baseball team. I think it's college kids, but they do things like they wear kilts instead of baseball pants for some of their baseball games. If a fan catches a foul ball, it's an automatic out. There was a bunch of different like strange things. They're trying to make baseball something that's a little more fun and engaging for people, for the spectator. In fact, they sell out all of their games. They're standing room only for all of them, which you don't really think about when you think just minor league. They aren't even affiliated with a major league team baseball. But maybe what you're talking about, Chris and AJ, even a little bit, we need to find ways to engage those outside or around our thing. Now, again, our collegiate, again, very different, and I'd be very curious to hear you guys talk about this. But how do we engage the Southern University campus? How do we engage the Park University campus around esports beyond just playing the game and saying, "Here, we won"?
Well, I plan on like hosting events, hosting other high schools within the area, and like bringing that full community aspect to it, bringing in partners and making partnerships with people like EA, like bringing their talent acquisition team in and showing different aspects of how you can actually be around the game but not play it. I think like just using EA for example, like when I bring it up to people like that, we're developing a relationship with EA. It's like, oh, so you're gonna let them be game testers? No, that's not the end all job. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's all about just exposing the kids to the opportunities and fostering that community. I mean, because if we're being honest, the majority of our students are gamers, and so it's all about reaching them where they are. I'll let Ashley of the Year take the rest of that conversation.
I was gonna say I love the avid gamer term. I think that really fits the type of folks that we're talking about here, and esports itself, the esports program itself, there are so many athletes and there are so many people that are involved in the program that literally are not involved in any other club that's on campus. They're not involved in any other extracurricular activities. So without the esports program, they lose such a big chunk of what connects them to their university. So I think, like you were saying, Jim, the ability for these athletes and these students to have a family, to have a home, to have a place on campus and in their schools where that's their people, that's their group is super important, because 9 times out of 10 they're not involved in anything else on campus, and esports and gaming is what they're passionate about, whether they're competitive or avid. It's what they're passionate about. They're passionate about the game and the community that comes with it. So as far as like getting outside of like our park community, Chris hit the nail on the head with trying to create some partnerships with other entities that are within the area. In Kansas City, we have a local Kansas City Game On group, and they've been running events and tournaments for like over 15 years. And, you know, I got hooked up with that group, and now they do all of their events on our campus, on Park campus. So we get 300 gamers all the way from, honestly, like little kids to adults and some elderly people. 300 people are on campus, and they all bring their own rigs, and they come in, and we fill up all of the classrooms down the hallway just all day and all night with people sitting there playing video games. So the ability to bring that onto our campus and connect our varsity program with the gaming community in the Kansas City area is huge. It's how we've gotten, honestly, it's how we've gotten some of our athletes and a lot of our fans.
And you know what, James? I don't think that is too far-fetched for K-12 to do either, the community part too. It's just something that they're not used to us doing. They see the collegiate as getting those big timers, the EAs or whatever you see that's commercial. We can do the same thing. We're just not seen as doing that. We're used to seeing getting the Pearsons and all that kind of stuff because they think, oh, that's so small. But we can. What I learned by doing all of this beyond esports is all it takes is a phone call, and either they can say yes or no. and sometimes, excuse my French, I've learned this from shout out to Bradley Kaplan. It's either a yes or no, and really it's actually a hell no. You keep hounding and hounding and hounding and hounding and hounding. Phone calls, emails, knocking on doors. That's the one thing I learned about running a conference. Don't ever take no for an answer. And so that's how I've had all the contacts that I've had. So I've channeled that into, hey, let's call somebody from PlayStation is going to ask me a question. Somebody from EA is going to ask me something. I don't know who to talk to, but I'm going to talk to somebody. There is, like you were saying, AJ, an esports league in your state somewhere. I have Houston Outlaws. Let me see who I can contact to talk to them about X. Houston Outlaws may have further contacts than I have, so let's start with them. The colleges, you guys that have that further outreach than we do. I need to be going to your tournaments to talk to EA to say, hey, I don't have the connections that Christopher or AJ have, but can we talk about you guys coming out to speak to our kids about X? And like you were saying, Christopher, not about being a game tester. I need to talk to you about how this shot can be in the human resource department, or how to be how to build a portfolio. Those are the kind of things that they need to be a part of.
Well, and what I think where again the K-12 and the collegiate separate in this, Bradford, and we can relate to this, is for us to do something like what AJ just described on campus requires us to make a heck of a lot more phone calls, if you will. Yeah. I mean, the red tape on a K-12 campus, because again we have everything locked down, is tight. It's so, I mean, that's a heavy lift, but it's also about maybe finding those community spaces that will work with you a little bit better, whether that's a community hall or a YMCA or a
local rec.
Exactly. Something where you can at least plan out something, because again, the thing that I love, the thing that I just absolutely love the most, I like that we can play our games, across state, right? That's cool. But having, the thing that I love most is when our USD, my school district, has one team against another, and they have to sit right across from each other and compete face to face. And the energy is high, and the heart rates are going harder, and there's something about there's something about that LAN experience, that bringing everybody together. You feel that energy, and I think that's where it's so easy for us to still have this pandemic mindset of, like, I went to a meeting today that I went to my library board. Me and one other guy were there. The rest of the library board members were all online. But we had to remind people, like, no, you can come in. We can actually meet now face to face. We can actually do this together. I went and met my boss the other day. It could have been an online meeting, but I met with my boss face to face. It's us getting back to that mindset of bringing people back together, reigniting them. And I think now, because games have become even more important, because a lot of people use them as like their safety blankets, their security blankets, their way to connect with people. Let's take it that next step. yeah, we can get back to normal, but let's use this energy that we got right now, this interest, and let's accelerate it. Let's, as AJ, your idea is perfect. Work with it doesn't have to be a school-based thing. It can be a community-based thing that brings people together for these LAN experiences.
Man, James, you know this. You know, Bradford, you know this. AJ, if you hadn't saw my room, you need to go check it out. I haven't got full use of it. So, like, to hear you say that type of stuff, like, I was sitting here today. I think I'm going to do a jamboree. I'm going to invite, like, 3 other schools out right when school starts, and we're just going to do a big LAN event and, like, really utilize that room in the capacity of James. Yes. Yeah,
and I'm coming.
It'll be too late for crawfish, James, but we'll definitely do some jambalaya or something, man.
All right. I not that I can need an excuse to come to Louisiana, but
food is enough excuse.
All right. So the E3 thing, I think that to me was the big takeaway, was that Xbox thing, again, opening up the doors, and again, being able to pull more people into this space who maybe didn't have access before. Hopefully, again, broadband and everything helps to bring down, as we realize that how important it is. Again, it's not a utility yet, but it's getting closer and closer. But the other thing that I think was important that came out of E3, and I wish Carrie was here to speak on this because she really had some passionate ideas about it. And I know in the past she's spoken very critically about some of the moderation that takes place in multiplayer games. AJ, a few weeks ago, you shared some screenshots of just being in a room for, what was it, League of Legends for about all of 5 seconds, and somebody figured out you were female, and then it was just like ridiculous, right?
Oh yeah, they went off during Champ Select, and obviously words that I do not want to repeat on stream. But yeah, they went in hard on the fact that I was a female, and a lot of really trash things were said, and literally 5 seconds into Champ Select, and I got bombarded by 3 different people.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that I think E3 has really. It's great to play up all of the games and game features and all that. I know that they're starting to pay more attention to accessibility, being able to say like, hey, it's not just people who have 2 arms, 2 legs, both eyes, full vision, full hearing, who can play these games, but everybody can play. But we're still missing out on how do we create these safe spaces for people to play. And I don't know how do we get these companies to just say, you know what, other than us, how we run our teams and how we educate them to do certain things, how do we get these teams or these companies to just figure out that, oh my gosh, we need to pay more attention and we got to put money into the things that are not sexy?
I'm really hoping that maybe at this point, it was a month or 2 ago, when Riot announced that they were going to now be listening to in-game chat when people get reported for saying X, Y, or Z, that Riot is now going to be able to poll and listen to voice comms of those games and the Valorant games to make decisions on bans and things like that. So, I mean, I haven't heard much from that since the announcement was made. So I'm sure since it was recently, there's not too much data yet to push out. But I personally feel like that's a step in the right direction. It's just another way for them to, if it was not typed out, they're now listening to what is literally being said. So I think that's a step in the right direction. And like you said, what we can do at this point in time is educate the students and the athletes that we do have to, try to be a sounding voice, try to, when they see it, when they hear it, to say something. I don't think it's really in our purview to just sit back and be silent about it anymore and just let it happen. So I think there are steps in the right direction. We'll see how it continues to unfold, I think.
Other thoughts?
I think there are steps in the right direction too. I think a lot of companies, ed tech companies, I'm not going to say game industry companies because I really don't know, are looking at diversity, equity, inclusion, and what that looks like. Um, and they're hiring people. I'm not saying certain people or anything like that, but they're looking at, okay, how do we look at this lens? What do we need to look for because we don't understand what's going on in this space, or do we have time to? And I'm not pinpointing anybody because I honestly do not know, but I know some are looking at educators for that, specifically hiring educators to say, hey, we don't know. We're just trying to sell a game here. We're just trying to do this here. And we're being called out because of X. We don't know what's going on. And us in the education space is saying, well, we have children that are playing the Maddens, the Halos, the this, the that. And we've been preaching about accessibility forever. But now it's 2021, and now you're talking about accessibility. Yet, while this is great, it's a little too late. Like, if it wasn't for the pandemic, would you have done this virtual? Would you have shown, all the people behind the scenes doing all of these things, showing the one thing in E3 that I was excited about was this is great that I see somebody like Chris or me that are developing and making games. I see a lot of women making games, but if the pandemic didn't happen, if things like Breonna Taylor and George Floyd didn't happen, would we have had an E3 like this? And then literally as before I got on, I'm thinking, okay, will E3 be like this next year? What will the expectation be next year? So as AJ was saying, I think that yes, it is a step in the right direction, but we still have to keep pushing at them a little bit more to say, hey, you guys need to keep going further and further and further with this, because there's still that toxicity in the space where, like Ed was saying, she's being caught up because, hey, everybody, I'm just a female and I'm learning about X, and she's getting caught out for whatever it is she got caught out on, and it's not right.
Well, and here's the other thing too, because next year's E3 will probably fall right around the new federal holiday of Juneteenth, which, by the way, so here's funny thing about my kids. My middle child was born on St. Patrick's Day. My oldest was born the day before Halloween, and my son is born on June 19th. So I have, check me out, and here's the sad thing, right? I didn't know for the longest time that June 19th was Juneteenth, right? It was. It's just one of these things you just don't know about, right? Growing up, I mean, it didn't come into my vocabulary or my mindset until the last few years. But it's kind of cool now to have that. But what's that going to look like next year if E3 falls right around Juneteenth? I think it's important that how Pride Month gets. Even though companies do, they change their logos. They do it during Christmas. They do it during, Kwanzaa and Easter and St. Patrick's Day and all that stuff. Halloween. There needs to be just as much attention and reflection and it paid to the contributions that Juneteenth has allowed African Americans to have in this country, male and female, and I think it's going to be a very interesting way to see how people. I don't want to. Gosh, I hate saying use it because I don't want it to sound like it's a marketing thing.
But they will. They're going to use it just like they're using diversity and inclusion right now.
But it can also be an advocacy thing too, if done right, if done so it's not just a logo. It's how are you showing how they practice this all year round, not just June, right?
Nah, I think you're on to something. And just sidebar, I'm June 20th, and so, but I think for sure, I think it's going to spark a conversation. It being a federal holiday, my governor actually made it a state holiday today too. And so, just going forward, it needs to be some initiatives in place. You know, I know June is like a big month for a bunch of things because I think it's like African American Men Health Month is, you know, it's a bunch of things, and so, you know, just one day out of that month, I think, you know, or even if it's highlighted throughout the week, or like you said, not even a week throughout the year, what that would look like, you know, only time will tell, James. But you know, due to our history, though, I think it's probably going to be monetized, and it's just going to be a post like Martin Luther King Day is. It's not. It's not going to be anything of significance, I don't think.
But Bradford, you raised a really good point. I mean, a year ago, let's say Breonna Taylor, George Floyd didn't happen, the pandemic didn't happen. Would we even having this conversation today? You're saying you don't think so?
I don't think so. I think the conversation would be there, but it wouldn't be as heavy as we're having it right now. Mm-hmm. I just don't think it would be as strong. I don't even think that the virtual conversations would even be entertained. The funny thing is, we're still even. You were talking about going to your meeting today and how it's okay to be face to face, which I don't have a problem with either. But
I have my shots.
I mean, I'm gonna be quite honest. I have my shots too, but I'm still like this because I still don't trust. I mean, I'm just being honest. I mean, that's just how I am. But take a look at what we've learned because we've been in this virtual space. What all the possibilities we can do. I mean, I'm in a household to where I've seen all different types of virtual learning. My daughter was in virtual learning for 3 years in a literal virtual school. I had to flip the switch in my district and be virtual. My son was in another district and had to go virtual. So that's 3 aspects of virtual learning all under one roof. And then there's my own personal virtual learning through my PLN. So I'm kind of talking with leaders going, okay, you're ready to go back, but what are you going back to? You're just ready to okay, let's go back to normal. Like, look at what you've learned by being in this space. There is a time and a place to be virtual. There's a time and a place to be face-to-face. So when I saw that E3 was being virtual, I got excited because I already know how expensive E3 is. My kids have never been, and I was going to go at some point by myself when there was not a pandemic, but my kids could never go. So that being virtual, we all 3 now can have a conversation. Hey, so what you think about that game? How do you think about this? Are you excited about this? So that brought conversation in the household. So now what I'm concerned with is what happens next year. Are you going to entirely dump virtual altogether and say, hey, we're all going to be face to face? We're not going to talk about XYZ anymore. We're not going to see those indie developers and what they're doing. We're not going to see those game developers. We're not going to see what those look like. What I witnessed virtually was all of those opportunities that were there. I even talked to students that are in a summer camp right now in my district, saying, hey, if you have parents that are concerned about gaming right now, you tell your parents, let's watch this E3 conference right now. It's free. Let's take a look at why the gaming industry is big. This usually costs money. Right now, it's free. We can go on YouTube right now and just see how big this is and why I want to be a part of it. And the kids are just like writing this down, like, I'm going to go talk to my mom today about this. So that, to me, I'm wondering, what is this going to look like when they flip the switch and go, all right, y'all, we're asking people to pay like X amount of dollars. And I get it from a vendor side. It hurts when you're not making that money. That's the other part that is concerned. So I get it. But now you didn't open Pandora's box and everything is accessible. You're able to watch this in the comfort of your own home, enjoy it. You're able to kind of see what's coming next and have a discussion about what you like, what you don't like. Talk to indie developers and say, hey, I think you might want to change this and whatnot. So that's the curious part. The other thing I even saw too with the indie developers was I didn't know they were having a show to where you could watch them play a game and critique it and go, you might want to change this. I don't know what it was I saw. It was some kind of thing that they were going to do. But I said, oh, that's really neat. I didn't even know that even existed. Would we have known that if this was a face-to-face event?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So it raises a lot of questions on what this is going to look like next year. And I'm not talking just E3. I'm just talking about anything for next year, professional development, workshops, everything. I am excited for esports in general, for the face-to-face part, because, James, I do agree with you. There is something powerful when you see those kids going back and forth and doing that healthy banter of, you need to do this, come on, go do this, because I think admin need to see what that looks like when it's team collaboration at its finest, because they're not used to seeing kids do that banter going back and forth, going, I need to see this. You need to be over here. Come over here. Because that part, when I first heard that, when I heard a shocker say, we're going to pan down, we're going to watch the kids talk, I went, dang it, that's amazing. I didn't know they were like this. So that visually needs to be seen, because you don't get to see that in the virtual space. So only time will tell what this will look like.
I also know, too, is, again, we were talking about the moderation. I think we put a lot on companies to do that work, which they may not be best equipped to do. I know there was one product in particular I looked at, not just for gaming spaces, but also for just our students in general. And that's called Healthy Player One, which is a platform which builds on to, it basically will do recording, screen recording, voice chat recording, in the cloud on the fly if a student feels that they're being harassed, if they feel like so it could be reported to somebody. It could be to you, Chris. It could be to you, Bradford. It could be to you, Ashley, so that you could take it and analyze it. And as I was talking to the people for the company, I said, you could use this product in schools in general. It doesn't just, if I could give this to a kid at home, let's say it's a school account, right? And they have access to it and they're getting harassed or bullied at home. A lot of these things, come on, those of us who work in public schools, we know this. Those things that happen at home, guess what? They carry over usually into the school in some way. They usually know somebody in the building or something like that. So there's usually some repercussions there. But this product, like I said, it's not, in the conversations that I had with them, it's not perfect right now because again, it doesn't do console play, it doesn't do Chromebooks, but if it's for PCs, I mean, if the companies are not going to take this seriously, at least we can use a tool like this to start to take our own control, if you will. So I've just put the link in there. If you have not checked it out, I highly recommend checking it out. All right, we're getting down to the last little bit for tonight. Again, we've talked about E3. We talked about, we got into Bradford, you'd opened up a whole Pandora's box about things, because I never, honestly, you know what, as you put it all together, I think it's really important to realize that had the pandemic, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd not happened, a lot of the conversations that's a really interesting spot. Never really thought about that. That is powerful.
It was the perfect storm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, look, my old AP said it. AP said it is what it is. It's true. I thought about all those things. What is all of this going to look like a year later? And we have to reflect on this. Think about this time next year, not even next year. Think about when we go back in the fall of school, and we need to start calling things out. Hey, well, we did this. Oh, well, that was because of the pandemic. No. What reach did we have? What impact did we have because we were able to do X? I understand that there was a pandemic. I get that 100%. Not a problem. But now we need to look at things in a holistic way. Do we want to stop and do things this way when we're only going to reach this many people? Or do we want to reach this many people? What is going to make a further impact? And for all of us that are in this space, 1, 2, 3, 4 of us, and that are ed tech and gaming, I think we get it, but what I really need for people is that aren't in the gaming and ed tech space. I really need those people, the content people that are like the ELA, the math, the people who aren't often in this space, to really be those advocates for being in, let's call it a blended hybrid space, because I know, like I said before, there is a time and a place to be face to face, but there's also a huge impact in being in this space and learning at the same time. And so that's what I'm really looking for, because I look at my own two kids and how they thrived in this space and out of this space, but we're always focused on how the kids are doing this in the space, but the adults need to be in that same.
Oh no!
Oh no! Did his stuff crash out?
It crashed.
Oh, he's gonna go ballistic on AT&T again. Oh my God!
Oh,
Bradford, I am
that freeze frame is priceless.
That, I should screenshot that so I can emote it.
Yeah,
Perfect.
This is what happens when you choose AT&T.
Snipping tool. Got it. All right, that's saved. That's Bradford.
Beauty.
I will do something.
Oh man. 5G.
All right. So, he's gone.
Oh,
Chris, if you hear screaming coming from the west,
yeah, that's Bradford.
That's Bradford in Houston yelling at AT&T. All right. Well, let's bring it home tonight. Does anybody? Oh, dang it! The one thing I wanted to ask him too was to talk about his curriculum. We'll have to save that because
and the fellowship.
And the NASEF Fellowship. Again, a lot of Scholastic Fellows are finishing up their program now. Jarrell will appreciate it when I say that you can go to NASEF right now and apply to be a Scholastic Fellow for the next school year. Now, it is not something that I have done, but
I'm just scared that I don't have enough time.
That is always, and that I guess would be a good question for Bradford, or if Jarrell was here, he could pop in into the chat, but I know he's been very busy with that. But I did just stick the link into our conversations here, so if you are interested in being a NASEF Scholastic Fellow, I guess that'll be the plug for tonight since we lost Bradford. I will plug for working with Jarrell Boddock, who is an awesome person, and the NASEF Scholastic Fellow program. The stuff that I saw over the last couple of days, even if you feel like, man, I don't know if I'm good enough to do that, look, the only way you're going to grow is you get around the right people, right? And you're going to grow around this network of people. It's now two cohorts of people. It's going to be a third. The network only gets bigger and stronger. So that's my plug for tonight. If you're looking to take your art to the next level and get around like-minded people with Scholastic Esports, and NASEF Scholastic Fellow program is the way to do it.
Sure. I guess my shameless plug for tonight. Well, I actually plugged already, but I'll plug something else. Do it again
in case people showed up late.
Yeah,
it's worth it.
Well, I have the official high school esports league 2K Pro-Am 5v5 competition with clinics, with Q&As. It's free. It's going to be free in the fall. It's going to be free for the next 2 years. Look forward to building it and creating a full pipeline from K through 12 to amateur to the actual NBA 2K league. And so looking forward to developing that lead and developing the talent that come through that pipeline. And I'm also the keynote speaker at Dell's virtual esports conference for K through 20 this year.
Saw that.
Yeah, it's going to take place Wednesday, July the 14th from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And
you're not talking for 3 hours, are you?
No. I'm actually going to open it up, and then they're going to have 3 breakout sessions. And some network sessions in between, but I'm going to kick off the party, and I'm going to do a deep dive into how to create a centric student esports program. And
it's all online, right?
It's all online. It's completely free. The Dell team told me it's hundreds of people that have signed up already, so I'm trying to get hundreds or more to kind of tune in. I'm going to take a deep dive. And hopefully somebody walks away with something.
And if you're not following Chris Turner on LinkedIn, you'll see it there. So,
yeah.
All right. AJ, do you have anything that you want to share?
I don't have any plugs per se, but I did enjoy the conversation tonight, and I think that the ability for us to continue to try to make the spaces safe for all of our students and our athletes is still going to continue to be a fight and be wildly important. And I think that the idea of, doing what we can in game, yes, should be done. The athletes need to be taught to, one, not do those things, but two, also stand up and be a voice of reason for those. And I also think that, for any universities, for any schools, any school districts, any person that is streaming on Twitch, having the mod settings set up correctly so you can block out any of the bad stuff that you don't want to see is helpful, but also having an actual person be a mod and look out for your Twitch chat while you're streaming is also wildly important, because the last thing that anybody wants to see while they're playing a game or while they're competing is all of the toxic stuff that shows up in chat. So find your friends, find your moderators. They're going to be people that you really rely on to, kind of help you continue to be your best, and just put your hater blockers on. That's what you got to do.
Even in this zone here, I have Sam and Mike Dolly set up as mods, but even so, sometimes you get in there and it's like, not just have a mod, make sure they know how to kick people out and know how to delete messages, because it's not always intuitive. You think it is.
Yeah, the mod tool on Twitch, it has gotten better over the years, but still, when you first get into it as a new user, you're like, there's so many boxes and there's so many things that you're watching. You definitely want to get someone that's familiar.
Sure.
Yeah. And if you don't know how, call AJ. Yeah. All right. Well, that will do it for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll be back again next week. It will be, we'll almost be through June. You know what? Next week, it will practically be the summer solstice, and guess what? We're close to winter at that point.
Fun fact, my birthday is the summer solstice, and my daughter's birthday is the winter solstice.
Oh, that's
so cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Of course, if you come up north, where I am, Chris, we have sunlight until about 10 o'clock at night, and then in the winter, it's dark by like 3:30 in the afternoon. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
You're not that much farther south than I am.
Oh, wow.
I know, I hate it.
Yeah, you're a Florida girl. Come on.
Yeah, I'm used to Florida. I've been here for 2.5 years, and I'm still used to Florida.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, thanks everybody for checking in. And hey, Michael Brooks checked in tonight.
Yeah. What's up, Mike?
Welcome, sir. So, thanks. And again, the link for the Dell Technologies Virtual Esports Conference, we dropped that into chat as well, so do check that out. Thanks again, everybody, for coming, and we'll check you again next week.